Okay, so Americans in Texas wanted greater autonomy, and that is exemplified in the issue of Austin. When Stephen F. Austin goes into Mexico City to request for greater autonomy, actually, he was also in support of a constitution that Mexico was kind of, some representatives were drafting. The Mexican history is a little bit too much more than what you need to know here. But he was in support of more of a Republican style of government. Well, Antonio Lopez de Santillana will imprison Austin in San Antonio. And so this is going to provoke a revolution. We have a revolution begins in Texas. So independence is the goal of many. Not all, but independence in Texas is the goal of many. Let me point out that Americans outnumber Tejanos or Mexicans who live in Texas 10-1. So the population of Texas is largely Americans. The Texas Revolution begins at the Alamo. Santa Anna will lead an army of about 10,000 men. He'll lead an army of thousands into San Antonio, Texas, there at the Alamo, where a number of defenders are located, Texas revolutionaries. The leaders include William Travis is sort of the brains and the politician behind all of this, general. But Jim Bowie, who's known for his knife, and of course Davy Crockett, who's this, he becomes a legend after his death at the Alamo. These men, along with 100 and about 85 other defenders at the Alamo, are slaughtered. They're largely outnumbered. Travis will write a letter, and it'll be sent to various places throughout the United States requesting for American aid in Texas. And so after these 187 defenders, Santa Anna had declared that there would be no quarter given. So if the defenders had surrendered, they would have been killed. And then right after that, a city of Goliad is attacked, and about 300 Americans are slaughtered at Goliad. But then the tide kind of turns, or the Americans and those Texas revolutionaries have a nice little look in Jacinto, in the city of Jacinto. They surprise Santa Anna and capture him in Jacinto, and he is forced to sign a treaty that recognizes Texas's independence. Now, after this, Santa Anna is actually exiled, and he'll be exiled for quite some time. And I've gone ahead of the notes here, but the women and children are released at the Alamo, and they will spread the message throughout the United States. Remember, the Alamo, Sam Houston, I didn't say this earlier, but Sam Houston is responsible for leading Texans and those revolutionaries at San Jacinto, the location where Santa Anna signs the treaty that recognizes Texas's independence. So there's an independent Republic of Texas for quite some time, and Sam Houston is elected its president. And hopefully we'll get to talk a little bit more about Sam Houston and his personality and some of the political issues of Texas a little bit later. But Texas will request to join the Union several times. The problem, and you guys should understand this, the entrance of Texas would throw out the balance in the Union. Texas would come in as a slave state because of its geographic location and because of the presence of slaves in Texas. And so the admission of Texas is kind of put off until the election of 1844. And we have the 1840 election, you had William Henry Harrison had won, but then his vice president really served out the term So James K. Polk wins the election of 1844. He wins on the campaign of expansion. Elect me and we'll annex Texas and Oregon. And so that happens with the election of James K. Polk. So this kind of manifests destiny. Americans have obviously bought into that, and James K. Polk's election is evidence of it. So Polk does two things. He sends Slidell. Now, many people believe that he sends Slidell into Mexico to purposefully provoke Mexico to retaliate. He gives Slidell the authority to offer Mexico $25 million for all of the territory of New Mexico and California. The Mexican government will not accept Slidell, so he is not allowed entrance into the government. Zachary Taylor is a general who Polk sends down to the Rio Grande to protect what is believed to be the American border. This is another incident in which Polk is said by his opponents to provoke a war with Mexico. And then Polk will give, once he sends Zachary Taylor to the Rio Grande and blood is spilled on the Rio Grande, Polk will give this war message to Congress that again is seen as a provocation of war. The attitudes towards the Mexican-American War are divided. The nation's kind of divided. There are some Southerners who oppose it, but most Southerners are in support of the war with Mexico. Northerners more so oppose the war with Mexico, but there are some in the North who support the war with Mexico, and we'll do some activities that will hopefully help us to understand that a little bit more. So does Polk provoke war? That is for the student to determine whether or not you think he is actually responsible for provoking this war. He will send Colonel Stephen Kearny to Santa Fe, New Mexico, and the Mexicans that are sent into New Mexico to fight are the kind of elite, the aristocratic people of mostly Spanish descent, and they're looking for economic prosperity, and they surrender. Many of them want to be added and annexed to the United States for the potential economic opportunities. So there will be no fight for New Mexico, and the soldiers there will surrender happily, many of them desirous to be a part of the United States of America, which is quite interesting. And then there's California. Fremont will go, Fremont is actually an expeditioner who was sent to map out the Oregon Trail back in the 1830s, and he makes his way into California, and he's sort of instrumental in the Californian government, and he, along with other Californians, will declare themselves independent of Mexico. And again, by the time the American forces arrive in California, California has already, they have waved a flag that they have coined the Bear flag, and it's called the Bear Flag Revolt, and they've declared themselves independent. And so for the taking of both New Mexico and California, no blood shed. But American blood will be shed in order to acquire this territory, because Mexico's not going to allow the United States to have it without a fight. Joint forces. Zachary Taylor will be over the troops on land, and Winfield Scott is over the troops on sea, and this is an amphibious invasion of Winfield Scott, and Zachary Taylor will march troops into Mexico City, and the fall of Mexico occurs in 1848, and then the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo is signed to end the war with Mexico, and there's a great dispute about what will happen with all these new lands. What are we going to do with the people that are there? What will the American government do with those people? Are they citizens? Are they not? What status will they have? What about the territory? Is it slave territory or is it free territory? This kind of ushers us into some of the problems of the 1850s. And lastly, gold is discovered the year that the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo is signed. Gold is discovered at Sutter's Fort in 1848, and then the prospectors will rush in 1849. Of course, we call them 49ers, and we have the emergence of new people in the American population. The Chinese will come in large number from Asia. We'll have the emergence of many from South America and even from Europe, but a lot of Americans will cross the vast continent using the trails to come into California. People who own businesses like out in San Francisco, the printing press will just be empty because people will be running for the hills to grab a pan and mine for gold. So very little other economic activity is seen in that 49 year. But some entrepreneurs do emerge and make a great deal. That's called gold fever, that rush to the mines. There will be entrepreneurs, though, who do make a killing in other ways. Pans for mining will be sold at a very high price. Food, we'll see great inflation out in the West. Food, all basic necessities, the price for these things will exceed normal prices across the continent. We'll see the entrepreneur Levi Strauss emerge out west. The most wealthy blacks will be found out in California. So many people do make it rich, even if they don't get rich in gold, they potentially get rich in other prospects. All right, so California will join the Union in 1850, and that will pose another moment of crisis for the nation. Okay,